After showing you the futures of every single Simpsons character, I thought it was only right that we now look at their past, because to fully understand a character, it's good to know how they really came to be, right? This has to be my most researched video that I have ever done, so let's go. Abraham Simpson. And oh man, what a way to start. In short, Grandpa is a really unreliable narrator and it's very unclear just how many of his stories actually happened.
So I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time. No!
So for this one, it's almost better to just go with the flow and enjoy his insane, rambling ride.
Hey, listen! Now my story begins in 1962.
So, as a child, Abe's family left the old country, wherever that is, to live inside the Statue of Liberty.
We had to move out once we'd filled the head with garbage. The end!
And determined to serve his new home country, Tiny Abe lied about his age to fight in World War I. He grew into a very athletic young man who was even sponsored to climb the Matterhorn in 1928.
I fell 8,000 feet onto a pile of jagged rocks.
Which sounds brave until we find out that he stole his climbing partner's oxygen and tried to eat him.
You did.
After this, he competed in the 1936 Berlin Olympics, inadvertently saving Hitler at the same time.
The next time I saw Hitler, we had dinner and laughed about it.
But by the time World War II came around, Abe now tried to avoid war by disguising as a female baseball player. And when that didn't work, he was then stationed in England, where he fathered an illegitimate child.
This is my daughter, Abby. She's 58 this month.
58?
He then served in the Pacific before bravely taking to the field commanding the Flying Hellfish. Not to mention that Abe would cross-dress again, but this time in a brave attempt to take out Hitler.
Is that story true, Grandpa?
Well, most of it. I did wear a dress for a period in the 40s.
Following the war, Grandpa modelled for toy soldiers and wrestled under the name Glamorous Godfrey. He'd then go on to father a second illegitimate child, Herb, at a carnival while courting Mona. So poor little baby Herb was left at Shelbyville Orphanage while his dad married Mona and raised their own son Homer on a farm. And you'd be very wrong in thinking that this was a turning point for Grandpa, because he definitely wasn't a doting father or husband to his son and wife.
Quit your daydreaming, melonhead!
Nope, so much so that his wife Mona left him in the 1960s. But maybe this time this was the push he needed, because he re-evaluated his priorities, later choosing Homer over his new love Rita LaFleur.
If I don't take care of him now, he'll forget the day he's supposed to come and see me when I'm old.
And then he gave up alcohol to actually bond with Homer on a road trip to Utah in the 70s. Financially, he also did whatever he could to support his son, even selling his own house so Homer and Marge could afford their first proper family home.
So how long before you shipped Grandpa off to the old folks' home?
About 3 weeks.
And crikey, that was a lot to condense, but one thing you will notice throughout this video is that because of the show and how long it has been going on, like over 30 years, the dates don't exactly line up. So you see that The Simpsons exist on a sliding timeline, therefore Homer can be a teenager in the 70s, the 90s, and the 2000s. This is simply a fun video putting everyone's past in chronological order, so let's just have fun with it, alright? So now we have Agnes Skinner. It turns out that Agnes had a pretty exciting life before, becoming a controlling mother who obsesses over every single minute of her adult son's life.
I told you not to play in the neighbor's yard.
It's a party, Mother. I was invited.
Yep, in the 20s she was a wing walker, balancing atop planes using stilts and unicycles, and then in the 50s she had an affair with a soldier on leave who actually turned out to be Flying Hellfish member Sheldon Skinner.
All right, very funny. Well, I didn't join the service to make friends.
When she fell pregnant, she didn't allow it to prevent her from doing more adventures, soon competing in the Helsinki Olympics. But it did prevent her from winning medals because of Seymour's ill-timed kick. Little did this unborn child know that this would doom his life forever. Also, side note, this only really makes sense if we ignore the events of the episode Principal and the Pauper, which I personally do, so more on that a bit later. Apu Nahasapeemapetilon. Apu was only 8 years old when he was arranged to marry Manjula, which he wasn't too happy about. So he was very delighted when he graduated top of his class, enabling his move to America to postgraduate, saying goodbye to his parents and a very, very young Manjula.
Farewell, my beloved.
He flew out to Springfield Heights Institute of Technology and studied for his PhD under Professor Frink. Although this story would change in season 26, instead claiming that Apu studied at the Mumbai Institute of Tantric Sex and joining a card-counting ring to earn some money to buy some fake SAT scores. He enrolled in the real MIT but failed every single class, so he ran to Springfield and the safe haven of the Quickie Mart instead. Oh yeah, and in the 80s he had a taste of fame when touring with his band the B-Sharps, along with Barney Gumble. With both of his folks in the military, his dad in the Flying Hellfish and his mum in the Navy, Barney also wanted to do great things, like going to Harvard. His friend Homer though soon put a stop to that though by kick-starting his alcohol problem the night before their SATs. And since then, he got a bit wild. Despite this though, Barney Gumble always had a natural flair for performance, which definitely appealed to the ladies, hooking up with theatre kid Sasha while performing in a school musical, as well as Chloe Talbot before he proposed to her.
I love you too, brake fluid!
Despite boasting extensive dance training though, Barney would spend most of his life not on the dance floor, but on the floor of the men's bathroom. Which is why it was a real godsend when he was invited to join the B-Sharps, until he met his new girlfriend, Kako.
Number 8. Number 8.
Bart Simpson. Bart was a cheeky boy as soon as he was born, setting fire to Homer's tie at just 10 minutes old. He also loved to swing from the clothesline and flushing Homer's wallet down the toilet.
Don't you ever do that again, understand?
Beep.
So when he heard he was getting a little sister, he worked out that he could pin all of his naughtiness on her, until he got jealous of all the attention she got.
I hate you.
So he plotted to run away up until Lisa said her very first word.
Bart? Summer and Succotash, you can talk!
His school life didn't start very easy either, but at least he now had Lisa by his side to save him from the school bullies.
You know, kid, with your smarts and my Barts, we make a good team.
And when his teacher wrote him off for life, he became miserable and lonely. That is until he met his best pal Milhouse, who inspired him to become the class clown.
You're funny. I am? Yeah.
Thus making his life so much easier and so much more fun. I should also quickly say that I won't be covering many other of the Springfield kids' backstories, simply because they're kids and there's not too much to say. Bleeding Gums Murphy. Lisa's idol made her start surrounded by the greats like Blind Willie Witherspoon. He got his big break on Steve Allen's Tonight Show and later on released his first ever album, Sax on the Beach. It became a big success, and like many breakup musicians, Gums soon got into substance abuse, of the Fabergé egg kind.
I'd like another Fabergé egg, please.
Don't you think you've had enough?
I tell you when I've had enough.
Bumblebee Man. So, as part of my Patreon benefits, this video was already uploaded for my members to watch, and one of them was very distraught that I had forgotten to mention Bumblebee Man. Well, first of all, I didn't forget to mention Bumblebee Man because simply there is just not much to say, other than the fact that his parents were killed in a paintball accident. So, sign up to my Patreon now and you too could make other drastic changes to my densely edited videos. Carlson. Carl surprisingly has some very deep lore in The Simpsons. He's a descendant of a former slave turned cowboy named Ellis, and his biological father Wyatt was a successful bull rider. And as an infant, Carl was adopted by an Icelandic family, spending his earliest years outside of the US, even if he did appear in that Springfield documentary when he was 8 years old. Carl's family history is further complicated by his biological sister who dates Lenny every Valentine's Day. Despite attending Springfield Elementary, Carl supposedly did not meet Homer, Moe, and best friend Lenny until they attended summer camp.
Wow, a Negro.
We prefer the term black.
So cool.
The group remained friends throughout high school, went on hikes together, and worked at Riot Rivers. And before obtaining his master's in nuclear physics and joining the power plant, Carl played in Homer's inoffensive pop band turned grunge group Sadgasm. Clancy Wiggum. The future chief of police always had an interest in law and order, even playing cops and robbers in the playground. He became a hall monitor at 16 and had about the same influence and respect that he has now. After graduating, he took a job as a security guard for Mr. Burns' germ warfare lab at Springfield University. Therefore, he was present on the same night that Mona and her friends destroyed the germs. But luckily, the antibiotic bomb cured Clancy's asthma, thus allowing him to join the police academy by the age of 24. In the meantime, Clancy worked for Springfield Animal Control and was in the Big Brother program, taking Lou on his rounds and stealing his dream to become chief of police.
Well, my dream is to be police chief.
No, you can't, because that's my dream. I'm going to be chief of police.
Over the years, Clancy overcame his ineptitude to rise through the ranks of the Springfield Police Department. And the secret to his success? Back rubs. And lots of them. Despite becoming the law of Springfield, however, he was powerless to prevent himself from being kicked out of the B Sharps and only embarrassed himself further by trying to sneak back in, naming himself as Dr. Doolittle.
Dr. Doolittle is Chief Wiggum.
This bird's gonna fly.
Cletus and Brandine Spuckler. There have been many conflicting references to exactly how Cletus and Brandine are related.
Of all the cousins I could have married, you was my sister.
Sometimes they're cousins, other times they're siblings, and once, even mother and son.
You are the most wonderful husband and son I ever had.
But the most definitive answer was given to us in season 33's Pretty Whittle Liar. The lovable hillbillies met at Brandine's sister's shotgun wedding, and it was love at first sight. And like a love story straight from a fairy tale, Brandine got confirmation that they're only cousins and hopped on Cletus' tractor for a moonlit ride through a weed farm. Comic book guy. Jeffrey Albertson's origin story may just be as tragic as some of the superheroes that he idolizes. Born in a family of quirky collectors, Jeffrey was a lonely child who had little to no attention, especially from his dad, postage stamp fellow. And when he finally got his chance to shine on the baseball field, his dad was nowhere to be seen, thus making Jeffrey strike out and thrown into a dumpster by his teammates. Fortunately though, it was a dumpster filled with comic books, which he found helped relieve his loneliness and finally helped him fit in with his family of obsessive hobbyists. And that was very, very wordy. He attended Springfield University, getting a degree in chemical engineering, as well as a master's in folklore and mythology. This is all before finding his true fortress of solitude in his business, Android's Dungeon and baseball card shop. You know what though, there might be someone with an even more tragic backstory. Crazy Cat Lady. Eleanor Abernathy was an ambitious child who worked hard to achieve her dream in becoming a lawyer and a doctor by the age of 24. By her 30s, however, she was burnt out, turning to wine and her pet cat for comfort. But when one feline couldn't provide enough solace, she got another, and then things got a little bit out of hand. But you know what? There's a lesson here. It's that reaching for your dream will inevitably reduce you to a raving hermit hurling cats at strangers. So maybe it's best having no dreams at all. On that depressing note, let's move on. Disco Stew. Springfield's authority on all things groovy wasn't always strutting his stuff on the dance floor. Nope, in one of the show's most wildly unexpected backstories, Nautical Stew was getting his photo taken for his captain's license when Marge inadvertently woke something seriously funky inside of him. So really, if it wasn't for Marge, the concept of being Disco Stew might never have happened, and therefore, neither would have the hippest nightclub in Springfield, even if he is doomed to relive the 70s over and over again. But what a time to be alive, man.
Your fish are dead.
Yeah, I know. I can't get them out of there.
Dr. Julius Hibbert. Not much is known about Dr. Hibbert's childhood, apart from the fact that he has two siblings whose identities remain a mystery. You see, the director of Shelbyville's orphanage told Homer that he'd spent years searching for his long-lost twin. And tragically, both Hibbert and Bleeding Gums Murphy reminisced about the brothers they never knew.
All I had was a little brother who grew up to become a doctor.
Anywho, the good doctor is a graduate of the Johns Hopkins University, who worked his way through medical school as both a bartender and a stripper who went by the alias Malcolm Sex.
I please the ladies by any means necessary.
We think he graduated after this, but there does seem to be some kind of ambiguity surrounding his medical license.
And guess who's been practicing medicine without a license?
Even still though, Dr. Hibbert has been the Simpsons doctor for years, delivering all 3 children, each time sporting a different hairstyle. Dr. Nick. Dr. Nick's heritage is a bit vague, although it has been stated on a few different sources that he's Argentinian.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Nick Riviera.
And along with Moe, he also took the US citizenship test. Before this though, it's hinted that he lived in the US for a good few years, as we see him in a flashback in the 70s, studying and abusing his license at the Hollywood Upstairs Medical School. Edna Krabappel. Edna's origin is a bit complicated because despite previously stating she only moved to Springfield after her divorce, she was later seen attending the local high school in an old documentary. Whether or not she was born in Springfield, we can presume that Edna moved away to achieve her dream of becoming a teacher. This is until her alcoholic husband left her for their marriage counselor, and so she returned to teach the 4th grade. She did get to enjoy a summer romance with Moe and was even prepared to abandon her teaching job to leave town forever with him. That's if she hadn't met a boy called Bart Simpson. Here, Edna Krabappel was shown to be a far more optimistic teacher about life and her ability to positively affect their kids' futures. But years as an underpaid and overworked public school teacher slowly turned her into a cynical person, therefore eventually losing her passion. Fat Tony. If you've watched my channel before, you might know that this guy has to be one of my absolute favourite characters. But who's yours? If you've gotten this far so far in the video, first of all, well done, and do let me know your choice for your favourite character down in the comments below. In his younger days, Marion Anthony D'Amico dreamt of being a more positive Italian-American stereotype, whether that be a pizza man, an organ grinder, or a leaning Tower of Pisa maker.
You are listing my broken dreams.
Despite this though, he quickly fell into the life of crime, starting out as the leader of a band of bullies. Within a few years, his behaviour only got more sinister, growing some wacky to baggy and guarding his secret patch in the woods with loyal henchmen Legs and Louie. After this, Fat Tony moved up through the mafia family into becoming Springfield's mafia boss. Gary Chalmers. You might be shocked to learn that this guy ain't a local. Nope, Chalmers once claimed that he's from Utica.
Well, I'm from Utica, and I've never heard anyone use the phrase steamed hams.
But on another occasion, it's revealed that he was born in Queens and then attended Ball State University before moving to Intercourse, Pennsylvania. His developing teaching career was cut short when he supervised detention, being put through the ringer when he mistakenly believed he was dealing with the Breakfast Club.
Wrong room. We're the Fight Club.
He moved on up, but away from teaching into becoming superintendent, and he really was filled with a lot of optimism back then. That's before he met Seymour Skinner.
Get her!
Gill Gunderson. Poor Gill was simply born a loser.
And let's not forget old Gill, huh? The wolves at old Gill's door.
He was just 2 credits short of graduating from Southern Illinois before jumping from job to job until the end of time. He achieved some small success in running the Razzle Dazzle's Pizza-tainment Palace, but his high energy, thanks to a bit of substance abuse, eventually got the FBI to shut him down. Groundskeeper Willie. Willie hails from the Orkney Islands in Scotland and was born on a pool table. And just a few minutes into young Willie's life, and his dad calls him trash.
You were born trash, and you'll be lucky if you grow up to be garbage.
Naturally, this strained their relationship, so when they reunited many years later, they had very few words.
I suppose you'll be leaving soon.
Aye.
He then dated a blind woman called Sherry Bobbins, who flew away on her umbrella once she got her eyesight back.
It's good to see you, Willie.
That's not what you said the first time you saw me.
After Sherry, Willie then fell in love with a lass named Mearsey. They planned to run away together to America, but her family told her that he had been eaten by a sheep, so now abandoned, Willie took to the boat to Springfield and got a job at Springfield Elementary as a swim teacher. It's here where a prankster kid traumatized Skinner by trapping him in a pool full of worms, so the principal took his anger out on Willie, ordering the pool's removal and demoting him to groundskeeper.
Shut this pool down, Groundskeeper Willie.
thus providing us with an origin for their complicated and strained relationship.
You silk-wearing buttercup.
Hans Moleman. Before delighting the world with the cinematic classic Man Getting Hit by a Football, Hans served as Springfield's mayor. The youthful go-getter wanted to do all he could to reinvigorate the town with a brand new anthem, but little did the town know that he bought it from a salesman, which was a secret that would come back to bite him badly, because the town would strap him to a horse with a blindfold on and banish him out of town.
Please be merciful.
However, there are clues suggesting that Moleman may have a more fantastical origin, being the king of the underground mole people. But which one do you believe? Helen Lovejoy. When Helen was 10 years old, we learned that she attended Camp Landerman with Marge and was severely punished for not remembering which out of the 34 forks was an olive fork.
Here's a simple trick to help you remember.
Oh! But I guess she did learn a thing or two because she would land a man, Timothy Lovejoy. And to find out the story of how they met, I found this Simpsons Mania trading card. So reading it, basically she fell for a dashing young Bible salesman called Timothy, so Helen accidentally spread a rumour about herself and Timothy and they were forced to marry. And weirdly, there's so many hidden stories that can be found in the merchandise of The Simpsons. That's really why we wrote our book Collecting The Simpsons, which is out now everywhere. So link down below if you're interested. Homer Simpson. Jesus, okay. This guy has the largest backstory out of every single character, so I'm gonna really have to do some condensing here. So like I mentioned with Grandpa, Homer was born into a really unhappy family. So much so that when Mona and Abe went to couples therapy, Homer ate his feelings outside at a chili cart. This eating habit would be something that would follow him for the rest of his life. As a child, perhaps in a bid for attention, Homer once stuck crayons up his nose, one which actually became lodged in his brain and made him dumber. And around that same time, his mother went on the run, leaving him in the care of his dad. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. Mona sucks. When he reached the age of 14, Homer worked at a Chuck E. Cheese type restaurant, and when the animatronics broke down, he improvised a hip-hop song right on the spot. Homer always had a love for music. He'd be the lead singer in his band Sarcasm, a grunge band that he formed in his early 20s and would later be in the B-Sharps. In high school, Homer was constantly in detention, but it worked in his favour one day when he met Marge, the love of his life. Long story short, they fell in love, Marge got pregnant, and then the two quickly got married.
Do you know why I married you?
Because I knocked you up?
No, because I love you.
Bart comes along, living in their apartment, followed by Lisa, who prompted their move to a more family-friendly home. But even still, with just 2 kids and a bit more financial stability, Homer quits his lousy job and lands his dream gig at the bowling alley. A job he loves until he's forced to leave when Marge falls pregnant with Maggie, which means that he'll have to go grovelling to Mr. Burns for his job back. That's about the gist of it, and I have glossed over a lot, but because I have spoken about his past within the other family member section, then it would be very repetitive for me to repeat them right now. So now let's go on to Horatio McAllister. Even though the sea captain is often lumped together with other one-note characters, season 31 took us under the sea to reveal his darker depths. 40 years prior to the present day, Horatio led an exciting life as an Indiana Jones-like explorer. With his unnamed lover, they embark on a mission to Springfield to find the treasure from their map, but little did they know that his ties to the sea would be tethered to him for 40 years, as he'd hopelessly search while his relationship sinks.
I'm sorry, I never gave you any children.
Amongst those years though, he did help a young Homer reunite with his one love.
Are ye looking to cross the lake which separates ye from she?
As well as offering to sell them their first home.
Don't forget to check out the galley. That's real shag carpeting. Arr!
Jasper. Like Abe, Jasper also tried to avoid being drafted into World War II by joining an all-women's baseball league. He was also quite the dapper dresser back in the day, and if you don't agree, then that's a paddling. Jonathan Frink. Being in a lab was somewhere Professor Frink was just born to be. Not only because his parents were chemists, but also because he was literally born in a lab, being the world's second test tube baby. Also, his folks were more interested in their work than their very own son, so he changed the pitch of his voice to get their attention, which explains a lot of his nonsensical jabbering.
With the up and down and the extra words and the terminal nonsense and the hivin, clivin, wagon.
Kearney. I did mention earlier that I won't be talking about the past of the kid characters, but Kearney, he ain't a kid. In fact, he's old enough to have his own.
I sleep in a drawer.
It is unclear exactly how old he is, but he shaves and he's definitely old enough to drink at most. Also, he was shown to be in the same 3rd grade as Otto.
Why are you still in this school anyway? We were in 3rd grade together.
Stupid school doesn't know how to teach me.
Ken Brockman. Not much is known about Springfield's news anchor's past, which might be down to the fact that he changed his name.
For Channel 6 News, I'm Kenny Brockelstein.
We also find out that Ken lost his chance of getting out of local news and entering the big leagues by basically choosing to help Krusty cover up his creation of the burning tire yard. This was in fear of losing his local news gig, and so watched his co-anchor slowly rise through the airwaves. But that's kind of it though. Give us more Kent Law Simpsons writers. Kirk and Luann Van Houten. Before he was condemned to a racing car bed and a turbulent marriage, Milhouse's dad had glimmers of a promising future. He was the star of the college lacrosse team and was even scouted to play pro. But after winning and high-fiving every person, including the college's mascot, Sir Grudgelot, he broke his wrist and the deal was lost. It's after this where he dated Luann, who may or may not be his cousin. I say this for 2 reasons. 1, because they look identical, and 2, because Luann was born in Shelbyville.
I was born in Shelbyville.
And it tears me up inside.
And as we all know, the divide between Shelbyville and Springfield began because Shelbyville basically wanted to marry their first cousin. Although Bart has another, far more disturbing theory.
Half-brother and half-sister?
No.
Siamese twins who've been surgically separated?
No.
Kirk would then get a job at his father-in-law's cracker factory, or should that be his uncle, or maybe even his dad? Now that's too gross to think about, so let's move on. Krusty the Clown. Born Herschel Krustovsky, Krusty grew up in the Lower East Side of Springfield in the Jewish community, so much so that his father was a respected rabbi and Hyman had dreams of his son following in his footsteps, but Krusty was always clowning around. Nope, Krusty had dreams of being a performer, which his father never approved of.
I never want to see you again, you clown!
And it's after this fallout that we can presume he moved to Tupelo, Mississippi to become a street mime, before making his TV debut in the 1950s pretending to be a Russian satellite. Saying quote-unquote pants got him banned on TV for 10 years, but he would make a comeback and build upon a thriving career in the industry while also doing a bit of stand-up in the Gulf War. And it's here where he'd meet the mother of his future child Sophie, Lenny Leonard. There isn't a huge amount of detail around the origin of Lenny, but we do know he was born in Chicago and the Simpsons comics told us that he's the last surviving descendant of a Native American tribe. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can learn from the comics. Also, buy my book Collecting the Simpsons. On the show, however, we do know that he was always a loyal presence in friends Homer, Carl and Moe's life. Because as kids they'd spend summer nights roasting marshmallows, running away from bullies, and vowing to never ever end up in the nuclear power plant. Which he ultimately did. But at least he had a bit of fun before then, because in his 20s he performed a bit of R&B and then lead guitar in the grunge band Sadgasm. Lisa Simpson. Lisa was gifted from a very early age, and Homer had very high hopes for his little girl. Now, they weren't able to afford private preschool for her, but Homer was able to get her her very first saxophone, which also turned out to be a great way to nurture her talents. It was also her key to unlocking a very special relationship with role model Bleeding Gums Murphy, and therefore the genre of jazz. Maude Flanders. We first meet a young Maude when Homer is shown what his life would have been like if he was school president, which included turning her down for prom. She marries Ned and we see the newlyweds on the road to their honeymoon, which would get very hot and heavy a bit later on.
Your dead grandmother's pajamas. You know what that does to me.
They had their first son Rod, but their marriage was far from perfect, especially when it came to embroidered hand towels.
You know, maybe I should use a towel marked BDD, Big Diddly Deal.
Maude also thought that her saintly husband was far too kind to annoying neighbour Homer, especially when he invited him to stay the night while she was pregnant with Todd.
Get the hell out.
Little did she know though that she'd actually have Homer to thank because he helped deliver him.
We're gonna name our son Homer. Todd Homer Flanders.
As we all know, Maude would pass away on the show, but we did see other glimpses into her earlier life in the episode Todd, Todd, Why Hast Thou Forsaken Me? In some home videos, we see her be a very supportive and dedicated mother, having faith in her children to do great things. And to find out if they did great things, be sure to check out my past video on every single Simpsons character's future. Marge Simpson. Marjorie is the youngest daughter of Jacqueline and Clancy Bouvier, and the sister of twins Patty and Selma, who are around 5 or 4 years older than her. And like many other older siblings, they would tease little Marge, like on her first day of school when they said that everyone shares one big toilet all at the same time. She would holiday with her family in Barnacle Bay, and it's here in these clips where we can see how much of a pure, happy and bright soul she is compared to her older sisters. But it wasn't all rainbows, sunshine and roses, as she'll develop some daddy issues and a fear of flying. This is because she believed her father was a pilot, until one day she discovered that he was a flight attendant.
Don't look at me!
And Marge, don't knock it till you try it, babe, because I personally loved being a flight attendant, and there were many men doing it. A few years later, Marge was sent to Camp Landerman to learn etiquette and how to behave like a proper young lady. And Landerman she did, who was Elvis, who also happened to be her first kiss, even if it did turn out to be Homer, alas proving that they were indeed destined to be together. Marge and Homer's paths would cross again later in high school, which was funny seeing as they ran in completely different social circles. Marge would be in art classes, painting Ringo Starr and participating in protests, and Homer, he would be, well, being Homer.
You just bought yourselves 3 days of detention. You know where and when?
3 o'clock, old building, room 106.
It was these differing interests that would bring them together in detention, which only progressed after prom.
I'm gonna hug you and kiss you, and then I'll never be able to let you go.
Together, the couple moved into their first apartment and she was accepted into Springfield University. Meanwhile, Homer was working hard to pay her tuition fees while she was falling in love with her teacher. Not a great look, Marge. Luckily, she would realise her mistake and win her homie back. In their 20s and child-free, Marge and Homer are living their best life. They're going to movies and having romantic dinners. Until 1 year later, when a night inside a mini-golf obstacle changed everything. Homer got a hole-in-one and Marge gets pregnant. Mayor Quimby. Not much is known about Mayor Quimby's past other than the fact that he was at Camp Flabberway. But who knows, maybe this unfortunate start to his life really motivated his successful political career.
I'm a bad little boy.
Moe Szyslak. So, according to a talking bar rag, Moe's dad is a Yeti. Yep. And this weird little fact is even backed up in that Lady Gaga episode, because when she calls out to her little monsters, Moe replies,
Actually, I'm half monster, half Armenian.
And then in Springfield Up, he admits that his father was in a freak show. Could this circus freak have been a Yeti?
My dad was a circus freak, but my mom don't remember which one.
I mean, it's been shown many times that Springfield has mythological creatures, like leprechauns, the Loch Ness Monster, so it might just be possible. Despite the possibility of being the son of a Yeti though, young Moe was a pretty normal looking kid, until he got stamped on by an elephant. And just when his good looks were about to come back, his face was then disfigured during his boxing career.
They called me Kid Gorgeous. Later on, it was Kid Presentable. Then Kid Gruesome.
His heritage is also something that has changed over the years. I mean, he obviously wasn't born in America as he had to take the US citizenship test along with the other Springfield illegal immigrants. Sometimes they say he's Armenian, other times he's Dutch, and occasionally Italian.
You no talk with your accent no more. Mamma mia!
But his background was finally becoming a bit clearer when in season 29 we finally met Moe's real father. And instead of being a Yeti and roaming around in freak shows and forests, he was in the much less zanier business of mattresses. We can presume that after falling out with his family, he was then dumped at a camp for underprivileged boys. He slept under a canoe and acted as an unofficial camp counselor. This is where he met Homer, Carl, and Lenny, and would later save the gang from a young fat Tony.
And that's how a troubled young Moe saved the day.
Luckily, as he grew up, his life started to settle a little bit more. He studied bartending at Swigmore University, set up his own business, and even got a chance with Mrs. K. Mona Simpson. Mona met Abe while working at a bar near the US Air Force, and he quickly proposed. Little did she know though that during their engagement he was having it off with a carnival worker, therefore creating Little Herb. And the cracks in their relationship only widened when she had an affair with a lifeguard. Abe would later reveal that Homer was an accident, so it's understandable why they married despite these issues. To be honest, their relationship was doomed from the start, making Homer's childhood one long torment, often exposed to his parents arguing. The family lived on Amos Pearson's moose farm until Homer spooked the cows into producing sour milk and therefore forced to foreclose. When they moved to Springfield, Mona really wanted to integrate more within the community, which is how she met her hippie friends. She embraced in the swinging 60s and tried to get her family into the spirit too, but her commitments to flower power eventually took her away from her family when she had to flee from Springfield. Montgomery Burns. Charles Montgomery Burns initially grew up in a more humble home, with parents Clifford and Daphne. This is until he was taken in by his rich grandfather, Wainwright, who was a former slave owner over the Civil War era. Therefore, the boy grew up rich, pampered, and goddamn awful, even breaking a worker's legs for laughs. We find out that Monty was the youngest of 11 siblings, well, 12 if you count George Burns.
Bum 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 bum, oh the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home, blah 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 blah.
All of whom died under mysterious circumstances, meaning that when the time came, all of his family's wealth would go to him. Funny how that one worked out. Burns inherited his wealth but built his own empire and became a pretty big deal in town. Yet even rich Mr. Burns couldn't escape from serving in the US Army. He served under the command of Abraham Simpson and served in the Flying Hellfish Platoon. It was after the war where Monty continued his financial success, but now focusing a bit more on the sciences. He did this by investing in the labs developing germ warfare weapons. This venture was squashed though by Mona Simpson, so with the help of Wayland Smithers Sr., Burns eventually opened Springfield's nuclear power plant. Wayland Sr. was one of few men that Burns really trusted and really considered to be a real friend, and therefore made sure to care for Wayland's son when he eventually perished. Ned Flanders. Although Ned is the perfect saintly scout, he was actually a very naughty boy growing up, mainly because his beatnik parents didn't believe in punishing their son.
Yeah, you've got to help us, Doc. We've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas.
And after some unorthodox therapy, Ned would instead spew nonsensical jabbering rather than anger.
You don't feel angry?
Positively not a Reno.
Something that ballooned and popped when he got older.
Hell, diddly ding dong crap! Can't you morons do anything right?
But anyway, we're getting a bit too ahead of ourselves because as a young man, Ned drifted from job to job. He was a dice painter, a clerk in a gentleman's club, and a door-to-door trampoline salesman. Or trampoline salesman.
Trampoline! Trampoline!
He said what now?
It's after a trampoline mishap that led Ned to his BFF Jesus, who tells him if he accepts the word of Jesus Christ, he will allow him to live again.
Praise the Lord, I am reborn!
So Ned's reborn as a Christian with only a scar on his upper lip to symbolize God's mercy. As discussed before, he would then meet and get married to Maude, and would see them journeying together on their honeymoon in the episode Dangerous Curves. It's also here where they meet Marge and Homer for the first time.
Put her there, Muddy Buddy.
Oh, he rhymes! Oh, happy day!
Their paths would cross again when the Simpsons moved to 742 Evergreen Terrace, and he welcomes them with their son Todd. Which is a bit weird seeing as we've just seen Homer help Maude give birth to him, but anyway, we move on. Otto Mann. Otto's past has largely been very unexplored by the writers, which I'm not too surprised about because they've mostly forgotten that he exists.
Oh wow, Windows. I don't think I can afford this place.
I've actually done an entire video talking about Otto's lost potential in The Simpsons, so if you want a deeper dive into that, then check it out. So, what do we know of him? Well, not much. One of Lisa's dreams suggested that he studied at Brown College.
Weren't you at Brown, Otto?
Yep. Almost got tenure, too.
But seeing as this was just a dream, however, the only thing we really know for sure is that he carried the guilt of killing a bunch load of kids on a bus a few years ago. But luckily, they all turned out to be dummies.
Maybe it was wrong of us to let you think you killed 24 children. Who could say?
Patty and Selma Bouvier. I joined these two guys up because basically they've been joined at the hip since they were first born. And as discussed, they weren't the best older sisters to Marge, constantly teasing her and also favouring horrible guys like Artie Ziff over Homer, who is her one true love.
Is Marge here?
Who or what are you?
I'm her date.
They've been smokers since pre-teenage, which is a habit they picked up to fill time while Marge did all of their chores for them.
This gives us a lot more free time. Let's take up smoking.
In fact, it's only when Selma admitted her wanting for a family that the two really started getting their own identities. Rainier Wolfcastle. Rainier Wolfcastle started his career really young. Look at this cute little advert right here.
Mein Bratwurst has a first name. It's F-R-I-T-Z.
Yes, this is a commercial in his native country, Austria. He then came over to America to compete in bodybuilding competitions, similarly to how Arnold Schwarzenegger did, who we can safely say that this character is based on. He then broke away and moved into the entertainment business by starring in several gay porno movies.
Hey, your early porno movies. Oh, wait. Are any of these hetero?
What's there is there.
And from gay porn, Wolfcastle moved onto the big screen, starring as McBain in the hit action movies.
Nice to see you.
Reverend Timothy Lovejoy. Reverend Lovejoy came to Springfield as a sprightly young hit man of God wanting to roll up his sleeves to help all men. That's until he met Ned. And slowly but surely, Ned sucked all of the enthusiasm that Tim had for helping his fellow men, one problem at a time. In between that time though, he did get to meet his wife Helen and have a daughter called Jessica Lovejoy, Santa's little helper. SLH was born to Seabiscuit, the fastest greyhound in the biz, and the two quickly formed a very tight bond, making it all the more heartbreaking when they were torn apart by cruel greyhound trainer Les Moore. But this doggo didn't inherit his mum's super speed and was the slowest race dog ever, so after coming in last a few times, he was cast out, but luckily he was soon adopted one fateful Christmas Eve.
He's pathetic! He's a Simpson.
Sarah Wiggum. For the longest time, Sarah was kind of a nothing character.
You're as lovely as the day I first arrested you.
Oh, Clancy.
All of that changed though in season 32, Uncut Femmes, where we learn that Sarah used to be a jewel thief and was the honeypot of the team. And it was during one heist where she had to distract and seduce a security man by the name of Clancy Wiggum. But this honeypot got a bit sticky by getting a bit too close to her target.
Will you marry me?
Probably.
They got married, had little Ralphie, and the rest is history. And speaking of Ralph, the only reason why we know he's a bit odd is because Clancy dropped him on the head as a baby, so that's another past added on. Sideshow Bob. Bob has gone through a whole lot of development during the show's run. He's gone from framing Krusty to hugging Krusty, from trying to kill Bart to loving Bart, yet unfortunately the only bit of his past we really know about is how he beat Cecil, his brother, to the role of Krusty's sidekick.
Chumley, you're hired!
Which is a role he never really wanted. Even so, he endured Krusty's torment for as long as he could take it, eventually planning to plot his downfall and therefore start his long, dark path of being Springfield's villain. Sideshow Mel. Well, before he was Krusty's sidekick, Melvin Van Horn was a respected thespian who graced stages from London to LA. But he became addicted to the applause and would do anything to hear it, even if that meant getting a job under Krusty and degrading himself every single day. Snake Jailbird. From one bad guy to the next, Snake was actually robbing tombs as an archaeologist before robbing the Quickie Mart. That's until his Inca treasure was stolen by Moe, so Snake turned to a life of crime instead.
And who would suspect me, Professor Jailbird?
Snowball 1 and 2. We didn't get the chance to meet Snowball 1 in the series, having passed before the show had even started.
Our little cat Snowball was unexpectedly run over and went to kitty heaven.
Nonetheless, in flashbacks, we can see that she was a very loved cat. So the family adopted a new cat and called her Snowball II, despite not really looking like a snowball at all. And history would repeat itself as she was run over by Dr. Hibbert. Then after a few fleeting replacements, the crazy cat lady tossed a kitty at Lisa, who she named Snowball II, just so she could save a bit of money by not buying a new dish.
That's really a cheat, isn't it?
I guess you're right, Principal Tamsarian.
But hold it right there, skinny boy, because you're next. Seymour Skinner. So, as hinted to just then, if you're a fan of the Principal and the Pauper, then you might prefer it if I called this guy Armin Tamsarian. Yes, he was outed as Skinner's imposter.
That man is the real Seymour Skinner.
Basically, long story short, he lied because he didn't want to hurt Agnes's feelings by telling her that her son had died in war. And spoiler alert, he didn't, and he came back until he was sent away again because basically no one liked him.
But I'm a hero! And we salute you for it. Now don't come back!
In spite of that though, we can basically ignore that because it's all been retconned now. Troy McClure. Springfield's B-lister got his start starring in educational movies like Fuzzy Bunny's Guide to You-Know-What and Meet and You, Partners in Freedom.
If a cow ever got the chance, he'd eat you and everyone you care about.
His biggest movies were Erotic Adventures of Hercules and The Muppets Go Medieval, but his career stalled when rumours started to go out that he was sleeping with the fishes.
You know, his bizarre personal life. Those weird things they say he does down at the aquarium.
Waylon Smithers. Poor Smithers was made an orphan at an early age when his father sacrificed himself in order to avoid a nuclear meltdown, and basically saved the entire town, might I add. So he was left in the dutiful care of Mr. Burns, creating some kind of paternal relationship, which would evolve into something a whole lot stranger.
Hello, Smithers. You're quite good at turning me on.
Let's just say that Sigmund Freud would have a lot to say about this messed up relationship. Anyway, when Waylon wasn't growing up in the nuclear power plant, he was attending Springfield Elementary, and sadly, he wasn't the most popular kid. Fortunately, he did find his social circle in the end, integrating with the more theatre kid clique. He was also a big gymnastics fan, taking great pleasure in announcing the men's entrances.
Well, that's the end of the girls' floor exercise. Now let's bring on the men.
Smithers briefly left Springfield to embark on a sketchy adventure at sea when recruited at the Navy, but was mysteriously discharged.
Now, Smithers, you say you painted all your Navy buddies this way?
Until I was discharged, sir.
And oh my god, we have done it. This took a long time to make, so I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please like and subscribe, it really does help. Also, a big, massive thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. You are all awesome. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll smell you later.